The Red Cross says it has collected a body said to be that of hostage Shiri Bibas from Hamas just a short while ago. Shiri Bibas' remains were supposed to be returned to Israel yesterday as part of the ongoing ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Instead, the bodies of her two sons, Ariel and Kfir, were returned with the remains of a different, unidentified woman's body, according to Israeli forensic specialists. The two boys were just 4 years old and 9 months old when they were kidnapped alongside their mother during the October 7th attack. Israel says the remains collected by the Red Cross will be sent for identification, and a warning that the next details might be disturbing for viewers as it concerns the death of the children. As Hamas says, Bibas and her children were killed in an Israeli airstrike, which they say led to the error, as Bibas' remains were likely accidentally swapped with another body that was buried in the rubble. But Israel says its assessments show that children were deliberately killed by Hamas militants, maybe by hand. Israel's ambassador to Canada, Iddo Moed, joins me now. Ambassador, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
This tie, the orange tie, you've worn that pretty much nonstop since October 7th as a reminder of the Bibas children, Ariel and
Kfir.
Kfir?
Yeah, Kfir.
4 years old and 9 months old. I mean, we've talked about this a few times on the show. I think we had the sense that this was the likely outcome, but what was it like to get the official confirmation that they were dead?
It's horrendous. It's horrible. It's especially when we heard today from the IDF spokesperson that they were deliberately choked to death by hand by the terrorists, by Hamas terrorists. It's horrendous. We know all what happened on October the 7th. This is again a reminder for all of us of what has happened, what has transpired. It's not just a one-time event. It's a recurring murderous, genocidal attempt to eliminate the state of Israel, actually. So for me, this tie represents not only the color of the hair of Kfir and Ariel, but actually 7th of October as a whole, as a symbol for what people are trying to do to my country, to me, to my family, to Jews around the world. And so we have to remember, and I'm going to continue to wear this tie until all of them come back, because I want to be in the moment, as we say, and to remind everybody else, when people see me, they ask about the tie, and we speak about that, because we have to remember, we all want a very peaceful world. You and I would like to talk about other topics, for sure, but the moment is that there is a genocidal organization that is trying to kill my family, my people, my nation, and we will not allow that to happen. So what we have to remember is that we are very strong, we are very resilient, we want to have peace, we will have peace, we will win together with our neighbors, with those who choose to coexist with us. But that can only happen when those who try to kill us will not have that power anymore. And this is why we have to continue with our operation against Hamas, against Hezbollah, against Iran that's behind it, and make sure that they don't have the upper hand.
This detail from the forensic analysis, we know Hamas says they were killed in one of your airstrikes, but your forensic analysis says they were killed with their bare hands.
Right.
It's just looking at the pictures, and so tiny and so young. I mean, how did you react to that information when you heard that?
I remember the picture of Bibas kids running in Batman costumes. There is a picture of the whole family in Batman pajamas. We cannot have a mental picture of what happened to them, but we know from our forensic experts that they not only choked them by hand, they tried to conceal it in the most horrendous way. And this kind of mutilation can only be done by monsters. And so, beside the shocking idea, is we have to remember that these monsters are there. We actually, in the process of getting our hostages back, we are compelled to release more of these monsters back to where they were, and they come back to their communities and they immediately take up arms and they say, the minute I'll see an Israeli, I'll kill him. So we know that it will be very hard to get out of this cycle. But then we look at what happened, the scene yesterday of the coffins being transferred to Israel. I don't know if you saw this, but there were kids dancing on the stage with the image of Prime Minister Netanyahu as a vampire. So this demonization, this brainwashing that is happening right there with children on the other side, it is very hard to imagine how can we make peace with them because they are bred with the hate.
Well, yeah, look, and I don't, like, those images yesterday were something to see, right? And, you know, they have also seen the attacks on their homes, their homes being destroyed, their schoolmates being killed in the fighting that has gone over the past 15, 18 months. So the trauma and the loss is just catastrophic, you know, across the entire thing. But I wonder about that yesterday. One of the issues was Shiri Bibas, the mother. Her remains were supposed to be returned as part of this. It wasn't her body. Now there is another body on its way with your government, waiting for DNA testing for confirmation. Do you have any sense of what happened there? Do you think this was a deliberate thing? Was this truly just a mistake, as Hamas says? I mean, what is your sense of what happened?
I'll tell you in a second, but I just want to go back a little bit to what we just spoke about, the Palestinian kids on the other side. I can't describe to you what happened to Israeli soldiers back in the 1950s when Mujahideen were coming from the Gaza Strip into Israeli military bases and mutilated their bodies. That kind of hate is not from yesterday. That has nothing to do with the bodies.
I understand.
Not just that,
but those children don't remember the 1950s.
No.
Those children have the lived experience of the last year and a half of war.
But their memories go back to their rooms under whose beds are the openings for the tunnels. They know that their parents hide weapons under their beds. I mean, we've spread those images around. I'm sure that you've shown them. Mosques that are used to shoot at Israel from schools. So they've grown up with the idea that they are being used as human shields. They know that. That's part of their psyche, unfortunately, but that's the situation there. When we are speaking about Shiri, first, we have to remember her parents were also murdered on October the 7th. I mean, it's a whole family that has been completely destroyed right now.
Her husband and their father survived. He's
Yes.
it, right? And
That's right.
I can imagine what he's feeling.
So it's horrendous for him. And he was the one asking for the world to know how his children were killed in detail, because he wants everybody to understand that what has happened then at that moment is an issue, not just a specific incident, but it's actually what he underwent. Of course, the horrors that he underwent as a hostage are a symbol of something that we are facing right now that is not over, that is continuing. And so we have to remember that we have to continue. As the government set out 3 goals to make sure Hamas is not a military threat to Israel, that Hamas will not govern Gaza, and we have our hostages back. This is just the initial phase of trying to change the face of evil in the Middle East. There are many Arabs around us that believe in coexistence, but we have to liberate them from the force of Iran and of those fanatics that are trying to destroy the state of Israel.
Just a final question for your ambassador. 6 hostages scheduled to be freed tomorrow as part of the ongoing ceasefire deal in exchange for, I think, 602 Palestinian detainees and prisoners. This incident with Shiri Bibas and her remains, does this threaten the ceasefire? Do you think the process will continue even with whatever the actual truth is of what happened in the last 24 hours?
It's a very volatile process. I hope that it goes through and we have our 6 hostages back tomorrow. You see every week that there is something else. Those shows, those demonstrations that the Hamas are performing with our hostages, with the coffins, all these shows, this parading of coffins and all of that, that continues to happen. That's, of course, a violation in itself, but we want our hostages back. And so we'll do whatever it takes. It's very difficult, it's very complicated, very volatile. Hopefully we'll get through to tomorrow.
All right. Iddo Moed, Israel's ambassador to Canada. Thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you for having me.